in Mexico by Chambers, Legal 500, Who's Who, Latin Lawyer, etc. Xavier's Research Foundation. Xavier's Research Foundation Trust runs the Loyola Center for Research and Development, an autonomous institute which has established in the year 1987 in St. Xavier's College, Ahmedabad. Its goal is to do research in science and technology as well as the humanities. The center not only employs scientific staff dedicated to research, but also provides infrastructural support and expertise to the students working on the frontline research field in environmental microbiology and plant biotechnology. LD College of Engineering. Lal Bhai Dalpat Bhai College of Engineering, Ahmedabad is a premier government engineering institute of Gujarat, set with the objectives of imparting higher education, research, and training in the various fields of engineering and technology. The institute is affiliated with Gujarat Technological University, Ahmedabad, and administered by Department of Technical Education. USSIC, US India Importers Council, is a non-profit initiative started by a group of Indian SME importers responsible for importers over $1 billion from USA. It is the only exclusive importers council in the world, and USIIC acts as an intermediary organization to facilitate council in the world, as well as the partnership and trade between the India and American business, and thus acting as a catalyst in promoting economic growth between the US and India. Wastenature Eco Private Limited is a prominent entity involved in manufacturing of its various products, like prominent electromagnetic water conditioner that helps in softening the water by removing ions that makes the water hard in most cases. This wastenature water conditioner comes with easy installation, consumes less power, and is customizable. Ranger Aqua. Ranger Aqua is one of its type, expert in cleaning solar panels automatically, easing human efforts, and thus increasing the efficiency of the solar panel by cleaning the dust and dirt with cost-effective techniques. MQA is a product of Wastenature. It's Tomorrow News. It's Tomorrow News is an online weather news channel featuring news mainly related to the climate change, weather, and scientific documentaries. It hosts interviews, podcasts, and various eminent persons with scientific backgrounds. Rotary Club of Ahmedabad Elite. The Rotary Club of Ahmedabad Elite is an active club of Rotary international organizations having played important role in various emerging issues and helps to find solutions by serving the society. The club is actively working in various sectors, including environment, education, women's healthcare, and it's serving since 2010. We thank and extend our full gratitude and support to the Rotary Club of Ahmedabad Elite for this noble cause. I would once again like to thank our organizer, co-organizer, sponsors to facilitating this event. Now, let us have pleasure of listening to the opening remarks by Mr. Omkar Acharya. May I request Mr. Omkar Acharya, Scientific Advisor at Nanoland Ltd, to deliver a welcome address. Over to you, Mr. Acharya.
Thank you so much, Janashri. Greetings to one and all present here. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, as everybody is present from different parts of the globe. So yeah, I'm extremely overwhelmed to get this opportunity to address you all. And I am thankful to each one of you for joining this international webinar on World Environment Day with the theme of Only One Earth. I take this pleasure to say that this conference has been organized by Nanoland, a prominent research organization in the field of climate change, renewable energy, biodiversity, and sustainable development. The organization facilitates such webinars to enlighten young minds and promote the participation of the general and scientific audience at all levels. I am compelled by all the speakers and experts from various parts of this world who look out their valuable time and joined us today to be a part of this international webinar. We are honored to have you all with us. On behalf of Nanoland and its organizing committee, I feel proud in welcoming our elite speakers of this international webinar, who all are from different parts of the globe. As you all know, Earth is the only habitable planet in the entire solar system, where we all thrive, but it is also very disheartening that we are debilitating the only planet we have got, which we call our home. as the international theme states, only one Earth. Our motive for organizing this international event is to mainly change the mindset of the people regarding our planet. Many are still not aware that their deleterious activities are killing the environment and causing serious climate issues. We intend to disperse the knowledge which can help people sustain their environment and climate through our experts who would be speaking at this prestigious event. Now, let me welcome all the eminent speakers, Dr. Bharat Maitre, Dr. Luis Vera, Mr. Octavio Taurus, and Dr. Flavia, who all are present from different parts of the globe. Also, I would like to welcome the representatives from Velopez, Vera and Associates, Xavier's Research Foundation, USIIC, and LD College of Engineering for co-organizing this event. I would also like to welcome the representatives from the sponsors of the event, that is It's Tomorrow News, MQA, Waze Measure, Ranger, Aqua, and Rotary Club of Ahmedabad-based. And also a special welcome to HK India for providing their IP support. Thank you so much, and let us enjoy the webinar. Over to you, Janashri. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Your thought-provoking welcome address sets a perfect platform for our speakers to deliver their presentations in the areas law pertaining to the environment. So now it's time for the nature, and as we have gathered to celebrate World Environment Day to learn more about the issues of environment and climate change from our experts. So once again, may I please welcome our dignitaries on the dais. Dr. Bharat Maitreya, Professor, Department of Botany, Bioinformatics and Climate Change from Gujarat University. Dr. Luis Vera, Partner at Vera and Associates from Mexico. Mr. Octavio Taurus, CEO, Velops from Colombia. Dr. Flavia Witkowski, Environment Law and Policy Expert at Witkowski Fragento from Brazil. So let's begin with the very first speaker of our webinar, Dr. Luis Vera. Dr. Luis is a partner in Mexican environmental law and practice and a founding partner at Vera and Associates. He received his law degree from the Escuela Libre de Derecho in Mexico City in 2010. He received a doctorate in Environment and Sustainable Development from Instituto Politécnico Nacional in Mexico City. He represents Mexico at Latin America Science and Technology Development Department. He is a member of the board of the Mexico-US Commission for Educational and Cultural Exchange and Secretary at the Fulbright Alumni Association in Mexico and abroad. He serves as a coordinator and instructor in various graduate studies programs in environmental policy, management, as well as law. He was invited as Executive Director of the National Agency for Hydrocarbon Sector by the current President, López Obrador. So I request him to present his thoughts with us. Over to you, Dr. Luis.
Hi, hello. Thank you so much for receiving me once again in this prestigious seminar. And thank you to Nanoland, the organizers, and to my colleagues. I say hello. It's a task to defend what we have in this one world that we have. However, we can always talk about climate change and all the global problems that we have. But I think it's a moment to reassess what we are doing at home, because at the end, it's the effort of defending our resources and our territories is the first thing to do if we want to altogether defend what we have globally. So, right now, there are a number of aspects of environmental law that are taken for granted in a lot of jurisdictions, and I think we have to look back at them. Now that is a moment, for example, in Latin America, where we have this discussion about politics, more social politics, going towards populism, for example. And that is really causing some problems to the implementation of what we have been constructing for these decades regarding the environmental policies and environmental instruments. What makes environmental protection lives? Well, the instruments by means of which the public participate in the decision making that in some way or the other affects the territory and the land where the community develop, and it's important to point out that all the policy instruments, all the environmental instruments that we have in our laws are participatory. Environmental impact, land use ordinances, technical standards, education, all of them require for the public participation so that the decision making is legitimate. And right now, we have to rethink about how do we participate. And there are a number of ways to do that. Commonly, in every specific instrument, the public participation is different. If we talk about land use, we commonly participate all of the ones that have an interest in the territory. And in order for this land use to be really legitimate, everyone has to participate so that the activities allowed in the land are the ones that can allow everyone to develop and to thrive. In environmental impact, commonly what we have is a participation that has to do with a specific project and with the what a specific project might mean to an individual or to the community. And each instrument has its own level of participation. For the participation to be useful, to be effective, it has to rely on the access of information, and that is the main problem. Are we developing? Are we producing enough information so that the communities can participate, so that they can participate effectively? That meaning that they have the information in a way that everybody can understand the implications of a project. I think that this is a moment to rethink about that. This is basic for our instruments to work. We have to consider that regarding environmental law, we are not, and environmental principles and the way that we protect our planet is not only a democratic participation. The democracy is for another levels and in the discussion. This discussion of the projects and activities and works that are being developed in the territory has to do with technical issues. We have to be able to understand what lies below a specific project. What does something means in terms of the use of the resources, contamination, or competing interests. So are we doing this correctly? We are now in Mexico facing a government that is populist. So it's degrading the level of the discussion, because now it's a matter of giving the public what they want and not to discuss the technical implications of a specific decision. And this is worrisome because we are looking at that in other parts of America and Latin and Central America specifically, some parts of South America, where public participation is being used for other purposes other than having the best information for decision making. Also, the access to the justice is important, because you can only access the courts in order to win if you have a valid argument, and the valid argument has to be rooted in good science and in good participation. So, what's the value of public opinion where you are not given the right information, when the processes are not being based on science, but rather in politics and specific gains for a specific politician? I think that we are at the brink of seeing some losses with, regardless of the gains that we have had. We can have loss on energy transition, loss on climate change. If the main instruments are not strengthened, we're going to lose a lot there, because again, we will be subject to whatever is being said from the government. And we don't want that. We want to participate. We want to be this a social effort, an individual effort, and a citizen effort. So I think it's a good time to return to this. It's a good time to rethink how are we doing, to look at the numbers in a way that we can reassess how effective we are doing this, and be able to defend our territory, and be able to allow the different communities, the different cultures that are in our territories to really participate in accordance what they in what they want. And we have to be careful. We have to be careful in the way in which the courts are responding to this, in how are they assessing this participation and giving the public the specific right to participate and in these discussions with the court, not only with the administrative authority. So as you will hear, there are a lot of efforts of different kinds, but I think with that it's a good moment to go to the basics. So having said that, I want to finalize this, briefing participation by trying to call the international community to review how the countries are acting. We have this mechanism in North America where the Commission of Environmental Cooperation does look at how are we dealing in the three countries, Canada, United States, and Mexico, regarding application of environmental law. But it's not enough. I think that we should be working on broader commissions dealing with what we are doing in other parts, not only of our continents, but not in the world. No, we want now that, for example, China complies with the environmental limits and obligations, so that we don't have the effects of what they are doing, for example, to extract rare minerals for solar panels in Mexico, no, because we all pay what everybody is doing. So it's a double task: review inside and outside. So I think that we should begin to work towards that effort. We are doing that certainly in Mexico and North America, and we hope that we can work together with whoever you want there with this expanded public that we're now addressing, and I will be certainly happy to be able to contact you and begin working towards this end. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I think that we'll all learn a lot in this seminar. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir, for delivering such an informative speech. So let's move to our next speaker of the webinar, Dr. Bharat Maitreya. Dr. Bharat is a professor at the Department of Climate Change, School of Science, Gujarat University. He holds a PhD in botany from Maharaja Krishna Kumar Singh Ji Bhavnagar University. He was nominated as a member of the assessment committee for revised merit and normal assessment scheme for scientific and technical staff in Central Salt and Marine Chemical Research Institute, Bhavnagar. So now I request him to present his views with us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Jalshree. And the late evening before we celebrate the World Environment Day 2022. So Nanoland and team of Dr. Rajesh Acharya-ji and Omkar Acharya-ji. So mostly involve the year where we celebrate this kind of this Environment Day or some climate change issues. So I'm happy to involve with them and share my academics and also from our research and put some NGOs, governmentals, national or international, so for their policy and making our environment healthy. So on the event of the celebration of the World Environment Day, where again the theme after the 50 years, the only one Earth, where we are going for to talk about it, because we know this in universe, lots of planets, and in that mostly lots of galaxies, and these galaxies where this our planet, where we are believe that only the living organisms which are live together and surrounding us, where the nature is found. Either there are the physical properties, chemical properties, or biological properties, and through this sunlight and its impacts on us and give us to healthy environment. But the mankind, our development in such a way like this industrial development, urban development, some kind of these calamities, disasters, which imbalancing our nature. And for that as a brain power which we have, so mostly the intellectuals and all the peoples of the society, those who are thinking for the healthy environment. So I believe that this World Environment Day, now we celebrate on the theme of the only one Earth again, and I share my some views about it. So on today, Nanoland gave me this opportunity. I can share my presentation with the PowerPoint slides. I hope that you are all visualize it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. So today on World Environment Day, only one Earth, which theme, where mostly when I saw the conditions where the 1972, where the UN General Assembly will designate on 5th June as a World Environment Day at Stockholm Conference on the human environment, and then over the 50 years that we celebrate each and every 5th June as World Environment Day. So going to the little bit of the history and about its theme, that again, after 50 years, the only one Earth in 1973, the World Environment Day celebrate with the slogan of the only one Earth. Then the ozone layer, only one future for our children, development without restrictions, renewal of environmental concern, some groundwater reality where the toxic chemical in human food chain, desertifications, youth population and environment, a tree for peace, Then when people put the environment first, development will last. Global warming, climate change, desertification, biodiversity, poverty and the environment, mountain a gift of earth, human and environment, for life on earth, save our seas, the environmental millennium, time to act, connect with the world wide web of life, water, 2 billion people are dying for it, green cities plan for the planet, desert and desertification, melting ice, gorilla conservation and solar lighting, embracing the process of a transition to a green economy, think, eat, save, raise your voice, not the sea level, 7 billion people, one planet, wild for life, I am with nature, bit, plastic pollution, air pollution, biodiversity, a concern both urgent and existential, ecosystem restoration, and again, only one earth. These are all the slogans and theme on World Environment Day, which are celebrated in different part of the countries. So if we notice, so mostly regarding with this, our earth ecosystem, it's about the populations, it about the single genus species restoration, its values, about the water or water scarcity or maybe pollutant water impact, either the ice melting is there, if there are issues about the global warming, any industrialization, pollution. So these are all the major content which affected and by these pollutants which are harmful for our environment. We are having more diversity among this world or on earth. So there are lots of geographical variations, variabilities with it. Their populations, their culture, their tradition. So industrializations, the source of the natural resources. So each and every part of on the earth where they are diverse. Also, developing country which develop by their urbanization, about it, industrializations, and after that, what is the possibilities for the healthy environment. So we have to go for it. And again, before the 50 years story about this talk on conferences, where the actions to transpose are generally the climate actions, nature actions, or maybe chemical and pollution actions. So solutions such as reforestation, ecosystem protection, and rewilding represent 30% of the opportunity to address climate change and receive just 3% of the available funding. So preventing, halting, and reversing the degradation of ecosystem worldwide. By the nature action, ensuring the resilience of our planet through conservation, restoration, and sustainability to nature. Preserving our ecosystem is must. We ensure access to knowledge and data on the state of world ecosystems. For accounting for ecosystems, we help our partners recognize and account for the value of ecosystem. We have to, at this building integrated solutions, we work through partnership to promote an integrated approach to ecosystem management. We help mobilize resources for healthy and productive ecosystems, and educating for sustainability. For the major part where the chemical and pollution action which we are taking, we work to minimize the adverse effect of chemicals and pollution on human health and the environment. Generally, we are suffering from the last 2.5 years by this COVID and the pandemic. To this end, we work closely with government, industry, and civil society organizations around the world to develop mainstream solutions for the sound management of chemical and waste. The chemical and waste are integral to almost all sectors of society, bringing important benefits in areas from medicine and agriculture to consumer goods, clean technologies, and poverty alleviation. While chemicals and waste are major contributors to world economics, their sound management is essential to avoiding risks to human health and ecosystem and substantial cost of national economics. Here, by some data regarding to the monitoring part of the UNEP, where the carbon dioxide concentration increased in 12 months, 2.76 parts per million. Yearly global temperatures anomaly is 0.98 degrees centigrade, and monthly global temperature anomaly is 0.91 degrees centigrade. So, foresight of the United Nations Environment Program, where of all these issues regarding to different location of each and every countries, also insights by them and make action and by the policy or by act or by laws which are given for this healthy environment. We know on Earth only not a physical part of it, but also some surrounding the atmospheric portion of there, also the relationship between all these physical, chemical, or maybe biological properties of that, and all these factors which are of environment, whether regarding to air, to fresh air, healthy air, very less pollutant in it, talking about the biosafety, where the chemical and pollution actions, cities and lifestyles, where the urban areas or maybe some kind of this in modern technologies. So some kind of the high life, where all these technologies, where the solar part is involved, or maybe some kind of the electronic content which are involved and which are caused by this e-waste also. So developing countries, the developed cities, where and the lifestyle, we have to look after that. The climate action, where the disaster and conflicts, energy part. Now we are look forward to some kind of transportations by the electric vehicles instead of this some kind of the fuel burn. So very less which we are petrol, diesels or gas uses. We are going towards in energy portion, solar content, or maybe some kind of the electric vehicles there. Environmental rights and governance, where all these countries or maybe states, their duties to protect the environment, protect the nature by means of that. Environmental review, the extractives like the forest area, mostly where the part is deforestation. So again, we have to put forward for this afforestation process. Mostly we are saying that the forest fire is there, we have to control them. mostly the major and minor products from the forest area, and which are generally protected by these tribals. So we have to join the hand with them about this gender. Green economy, it's concerned about the nature action where the ocean and seas, where the parts, where the resource efficiency is there. Mostly we said, so around us, mostly in the terrestrial area, which we are covers, mostly in the mountain part or maybe ground part area. So some resources are there, but also some seas and oceans where we can collect it from that part. The sustainable development goals, which are given by this, all these world most important agencies, this technology, by this transport, and by this water, mostly the many countries, those who have a water scarcity, so conserve and reserve the water and the water reservoir, major rivers, they have to conserve, and also they conserve the water part in it. Mostly many countries which we felt that only in a monsoon, only the sources of the water from that environmental part. Youth, education, and environment, because our next generations, mostly from the childhood to youth part, where we are go for proper education to them and educate for the better environment, protect environment and conserve this environmental portion. Generally, we observed our around some ecosystems where the well, lakes, ponds, springs, rocky, sandy coast or estuary, salt marsh, coral reef, grassland, forest, mountain, desert, sand dunes, urban, village, agricultural field. These are the all these properties where by the ecosystems they are diverse. Ecosystem, the component of ecosystem, we have to know the productivity of energy flow, the food chain and food web, energy efficiencies, ecosystem diversity, lake environment, biogeochemical cycle. These are all the roles of the ecosystems. And in each and every part where all these ecosystems, where they are connected, each and every energy flow part, so we can conserve all the ecosystem, and by this ecosystem, we conserve our earth. The mountain area, which we are the concern, mostly during our this field trip or maybe visit to the hilly area during the summer period. So we notice, so mostly the mountain ecosystem are different. Mostly the landsliding, which are going there. Also, some agricultural field problems by phase of this in the slope of the mountains. We are not growing much in agricultural field also, but we develop in a way for this wild varieties of the plant for the better healthy environment in this mountain area. Also some like of this pond where the water bodies which are stagnant or maybe boundary by the some terrestrial terrestrial, and we have to protect this kind of pond ecosystem so we can conserve all this ecosystem content or factors of about it. The forest, the main source of the oxygen, also the main source of the primary producers on the ecosystem. So we have to protect them, afforestation process, which are most or going well. The rivers, major rivers on our earth, where we have to conserve mostly the diversification of the rivers and where the water scarcity is there. So we have to develop in this way. Mostly in the plains where we are saying that the agriculture part, which are recovered in that portions. So we have to develop the mountain rivers, the main source where we can conserve the water through these mountain boundaries. Landsliding, snowfall impact on vegetation mostly in a high altitude and in a longitude and all the North Pole or maybe some South Pole, where we are saying that ice is melting or also in a mountainier part, the landsliding and snowfall is there. So which are impact on the vegetation. So we have to restore them. Mountain ice, where there are some climate change which are there, and mostly in a winter season, all this covering by the ice, and after in this post winter season where the ice is melting, about that, and some kind of this river flood which are also occurs. We have agricultural farm, mostly our urban or maybe village ecosystem which are depend on the agriculture product. So mostly the variety of the various crop, either it is about the cereal pulses or maybe fruit, vegetable, dry fruits. So mostly the farmers, those who are producing all those things, and by the geographical area where they are the different kind of the varieties, we have to protect them for our better future, because this healthy food for the food safety and better food which make the human health well. About this health and environment, we are saying that human diseases, in fact, this is chemicals, about the diet, waterborne pathogens, respiratory hazards, climate change and human health, vector-borne disease, metal toxicity, radiation damage, health impact management, contaminated food and water, soil-borne disease, insect-borne disease, different viruses, plague, COVID-19, mucormycosis, and by this modern research, which we have a different kind of the disease which we have. So all this part, which we are a part of life on the earth, we are intellectuals, not only in a World Environment Day, but each and every day. So like academicians, like researchers, and have by this intellectual uh, in a society. So I think that we have to give the clear-cut message to all that we have to conserve the nature and reserve the better future for all of us and for all our next generation, for this better healthy earth of it. So on this way, because all the part from the terrestrial to the underground part, deepen in the sea, also in the sky part, or maybe some space part, all the kind up to this, the ozone depletion portions to be very bottom of the sea or maybe ocean where we are going. And by these new modern technologies, we are involved to research it, we are involved to be control it, and we are involved to make the healthy environment around us. And all the citizens of each and every country, those who are giving their efforts for this healthy environment. So our earth, which have only one earth, these are the main theme which we are giving this. So by this message and then content that I conclude my presentation. So thank you. Thank you, Nanoland, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for such a thoughtful presentation. So let's move forward with our next speaker of the webinar, Mr. Octavio Taurus. As a clean tech entrepreneur, Mr. Taurus founded a well-up digital service and successful developer technology company that has a core solution, a cloud-based platform that enables companies and municipalities to optimize their environmental flaws from any stage along their operations in key economic sectors by digitizing the documentation process and consolidating key information at the points of generations, as well as connecting companies to ensure accountability and transparency, while consolidating a digital ecosystem that allows identifying synergies between companies to maximize the value of vested resources. The solution has been successfully implemented and adopted in several leading companies such as Coca-Cola FEMSA, Postobon, Corona, Unilever, as well as among well-known others. So now I request him to present his views with us. Over to you, Dr. Taurus.
Hi everyone, thanks for this invitation. I'm gonna share my screen, so let me know once you see it. Is it,
Yes, sir.
has it loaded?
Yes, sir.
Great. Well, thank you everyone. Hi from, well, actually I'm from Colombia, but right now I'm transmitting from Mexico City. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, in some places. Well, at Valopes, first I'm gonna start telling you that the meaning of the company, it's a wordplay. Valopes comes from the conjunction of two words, val from value and opus from resources in Latin. So basically what we're aiming to is to recover the value of resources through data. And for this, we have developed a cloud-based platform that enables industry, but as well municipalities, to understand from their data the capacity to have a transition to a low carbon circular economy. And well, the two other panelists have introduced well why we're facing a huge challenge, but I'm just going to sum it up. Cities, industry, and society, we will be confronting a time-bound material consumption by 2050. This as well will have a great impact in the scarcity of water resources, mainly because the water cycle, it's embedded in all the other cycles of materials that we consume and transform daily. Of course, for providing all the material, we will need to double the amount of resources to extract based on 2050 for 2050. So that's a huge impact to Earth and the biota and the ecosystems. And this will have a huge impact in the volatility of prices, mainly because the more we extract resources, the more scarce they're going to be, at least in the ecosystems. Meanwhile, all these resources that we're consuming, transforming, and disposing are going to quadruple for this time, comparing with 2017. And this means that we'll be sending a lot of valuable materials that have had transformation processes where energy has been consumed, where greenhouse gases have been emitted, where water has been as well consumed. So there's a huge opportunity there to see how we can divert all that material, and it's only expected that we will be recovered 20% of it. So there's tons of things to do. And a bit of what is happening in the territories, in municipalities, and this has been highlighted by UNEP, it's that there is not reliable data to speed up circularity. And that's one of the things that we have identified, is that even though a lot of countries have these environmental information systems where industry and other type of organizations send environmental data of their performance, could be monthly or yearly or with other type of frequencies. This data usually is being employed for statistics purpose, but not being used or sent back to the territory so that they can work with data-driven framework towards developing public policy. So this is a huge challenge. And the challenge and the problem we have stated as a lack of governance due to this lack of information for private sector, at least in that time from where our experience are collecting all this environmental data. And by environmental data, meaning energy consumption by source, not only from the grid, but as well fossil fuels or other type of like fuels that are required, or gas, as well water consumption or raw material consumption or energy waste and waste management generation is being all captured by data, by paper and spreadsheets, which works fine, but when you want to standardize and have the capacity to benchmark, it's bit of difficult and generates lack of transparency. And by the other side, as I was telling you, we have identified, at least in this region of the world, that all these public systems, information systems, where companies, as I told you, are sending this information with some frequency of periods, the information is not getting back to the territory level, to municipalities. So all the info, it's being used for the country statistics, so they can send it to the OCD or this type of intergovernmental actors. But the cities, the departments, the states are not having an overview of how these consumptions in their territories are generating impacts and how they can actually identify hotspots or as well as you could say, low-hanging fruits to intervene their territory and increase the recovery of certain materials, or as well to dismantle some of the emissions throughout certain type of technology acquisitions in their territories. So that's a lot of things that we're trying to achieve. So, well, as stated, we have been working with the industry, but since this year as well, we have started to work with municipalities here in Colombia. Well, in Colombia, back in Colombia. And what we have done, it's to enable the organizations to replace paper and Excel files for a cloud-based platform that's capable of capturing data and collecting this data from an app, or as well by connecting with sensors. And all this data not only enables to have accountability of energy being consumed by source, water, or waste, but as well to have all the legal documents or certificates in the cloud as well. So you can have them in hand once you report audits from internal or as well from the governmental bodies that regulate or control. And of course, if you're in a company, you want to understand how much is your expenditure level or savings or incomes regarding the environmental operations. So as well, we track down all those movements and provide them some analytics that describes and enables the consolidation of information towards compliancy, but as well towards sustainability, transparency, and reports, ESGs, and some other source of information that are required. And for this, we have developed two modules of a cloud-based solution. The first one is the data collection solution, that is the document, which basically enables a company that has multiple operations, not only in a country, but maybe in several countries, to capture the data in a proper way, to comply with the regulation in that country, but as well to standardize this data so that they can have regional reports. And that's what we do with the second module, that it's our advanced reporting and data visualization solution for business intelligence, where we can collect all this data being lifted or collected by the document and generate bespoke analysis, not only descriptive analysis, but as well, as I will tell you later, prospective analysis for public policy purpose. And what we have achieved from the business as a business solution, a B2B solution with our clients, is that they reduce the amount of time they were spending on consolidating this data in several formats so that they could communicate towards the, let's say, operational department or budget department or HIS department. Now they just capture the data with our solution, and automatically all these reports are being consolidated. So this time efficiency at the supervisors in their sites, in their plants, enables them to focus more on the information that is being generated throughout this data, and they have enabled to reduce their cost of the operation, but as well start identifying new income generation, more focus on the waste and byproduct modules, and of course have real-time analytics in companies such as Coca-Cola in Colombia. They were more or less taking between 2 to 4 weeks to consolidate the data of all their plants, while now once you put the info in the platform, the analytics will be available for the headquarters to see what's happening in each of their operations. So the document quite fast. We have 2 versions. The first version is the industrial metabolism solution that is for companies that consumes resources such as energy, as I told you, raw material, water, but generates throughout their daily operation the generation of waste. Of course, they manufacture or provide a service and have some environmental contributions. There are these footprints such as carbon footprint, water footprint, ecological footprint that want to not only be communicate to the stakeholders and shareholders, but as well to measure them so that they can have the capacity of planning, the dismantle them or compensation of these footprints. And this is something that, of course, is always alienated from the environmental policy of each country. So, for example, in Colombia, companies since this year, they have to compile with EPR law, extended producer responsibility law, but as well there is in the carbon sector another carbon emission law where they require to not only to measure but as well to state what's going to be their plan to dismantle 50% of the emissions in the next 10 years. And if they are able to achieve that, they can have some benefits with taxes. So this type of incentives, which are the generation of taxes and frameworks, are pushing forward that companies start improving their own data so that they can fulfill these requirements. And the other version we have is the industrial manager, material manager, that usually it's used for gaining traceability and digitalizing the operation of waste managers, as well of standard producer responsibility programs, where you are able to trace what you're collecting, which type of materials or waste or chemicals and substances that need to be disposed and treated, and have like all these digitalization so that they can provide this transparency towards their clients that are the companies generating this type of waste. And reporting, of course, with the data that we have been collecting, we are having the capacity to provide like bespoke analysis to our clients, not only in the waste and material aspect, but as well in the carbon footprint related to the consumption of energy by source and other types of chemicals and substances that contribute. So we are able to capture data for the scope 1, 2, and 3 of the carbon footprint of companies. And we have been making several assessments with data, public data. For example, when COVID arrived to Colombia, what we did was quick prognosis of which one was going to be the moment where the facilities that were treating like biohazard, biological waste were going to enter or were collapse because of the amount of waste that was going to be increasing because of COVID, and that provide a hindsight quite interesting, so that government and territorial actors could start identifying other possibilities to send that waste to treatment. So yeah, of course, this type of implementations have provided business cases to our clients, not only by passing from having a non-standardized way of capturing the data in each of their factories, to having a unification of those catalogs and how they were catalog, defining the names of the materials or the energy resources to automatize information that goes and fills their sustainability reports. Before working working with us with the platform, because they didn't have as well an understanding of their financial returns. They knew that they were making money of selling several type of materials where there is already established market, but they didn't have the capacity to benchmark their operations and see who was basically identifying some good practices where they, by sorting better the materials, they could achieve a better price in the market, or identifying how a byproduct could replace as raw material in several processes, and launching alliances with companies. And besides that, they were measuring only their scope 2 of their carbon footprint. And once we start working with them with the waste module, that was the one we implemented, they already had the possibility to measure their greenhouse gases contributions of their waste management operation. Of course, there are some impacts regarding SDGs that are related towards having this data, and how this data could enable companies to take data-driven decisions to improve their performance, but as well to use their environmental data as a marketing tool at the end. New generations are really aware or want to have a better understanding of what they're consuming, which are their implications, and how companies are acting to reduce and compensate their impact. And our other solution that was the one that I was telling you at the beginning, it's focused on working with municipalities. This is the Circular Data Lab for smart cities. These, let's say, new version or new business segment of Palopes was developed thanks to an assessment that we did with the German corporation here in Colombia, where basically we map out the different environment information systems that were capturing data regarding waste from different economic sectors, because it's compulsory, and understand what's happening with this data and which was the infrastructure that was being used for consolidating this data and analyzing it. So that's how we came up to understand that all this data that companies are sending to this information system was mostly used for statistical purpose. So telling the other countries and the Audit and the region what was happening, but not used to provide tools to the municipalities that are the ones that as well needs this data to legislate and to define intervention points in their territories. So that's how we came along with this data lab, that at the end it's a strategic framework that has the possibility of generating a scenario analysis of their circular economy strategies. Colombia was one of the first countries in the region to develop their national strategies, and from that point ahead, cities and territories have started to develop their own. So we have been working with them to, based on what they have prioritized, which economical sectors, another type of, let's say, material flows, with that information, develop or construct a simulation model that will not only harvest this secondary information that has been used to build up these like roadmaps and strategies, but as well with the power of collecting data from our document solution, have primary data from the industry and with the modulation, start developing some future scenarios that will enable to identify which are the tactics and activities to achieve them in the near future, and will enable the municipalities to plan their roadmaps of how they want to implement those scenarios and which are the actions they have to develop. So this is a quite interesting exercise because it's multidisciplinary, but as well it aggregates the data, like real-time data from the industry. And we believe that will enable decision makers in a government level, local government, to understand with numbers exactly what are the opportunities in their territories, understand which is the flow of these resources, how they're being consumed, how they're being transformed, and if industry and other economic actors are developing fast enough their capacities to dismantle their contributions or to increment the circularity of certain materials. So this is something that it's ongoing. We have started right now to, as I told you, to work with two territories, and we believe this will enable them to have a crystal clear view of how they have to prioritize their resources to like fast forward the transition toward a circular economy. And of course, this will have several impacts that are not only related to how the waste is being processed and the amount of jobs that will be consolidated, of having the possibility to recycle and reuse and recycle more materials, but as well they have other type of impacts related to climate change. I don't know if you have heard and see and read the circularity gap report, where they have stated perfectly that if we are able to implement from a 7%, which is the index that they have measured with their methodology, towards a 15% circularity index worldwide, we will be able to curb the increment of the temperature to the 2 degrees limit. Of course, the ideal limit right now that it's being talked by scientists is 1.5 degrees. But what it's important, or the clear message from the circularity gap report, is that if we're able to trace down our materials in our local economies, and from that point ahead synchronize the value chain so that we can recover those materials, and of course invest in treatment processes and plants to reuse it and replace raw material, we will be as well not only saving money in most cases, but as most likely in several materials we'll be reducing the amount of energy consumed compared with raw materials. So forth, we will be dismantling or decoupling emissions from our value chain. So that's something important to state and to clear out. If you want to have more info of the working we're doing, I'm showing you this QR code so you can trace down a bit of our work. And well, thank you everyone for listening. These are my contact details, so you can write me or message me by WhatsApp. And once more, want to say thanks to this invitation to the people of Nanoland. And this is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Octavio. We are really delightful by your presentation. So let's move forward with our next speaker of the webinar, Dr. Flavia Witkowski. Dr. Flavia, PhD and MA in Social Relations and Environmental Law from Pontifical Catholic University of Sopot. She has been visiting research fellow at the Oxford Institute of Energy Studies and policy fellow of the Smith School of Enterprise and the Environment at the University of Oxford. She has an extensive experience in advocacy, ESG, sustainability, and carbon management consultancy for international corporations, namely GIZ, UN Environment, UNFCCC, UNCCD, and UN. She is a researcher at the Applied Economical Research Institute, IPEA, by Red Climate. She also acted as the CEO of G&G Asset Accessoria Ambiental Ltd and is the founder of Witkowski-Frankto Society specialized in climate and innovation law. So now I request her to present her views with us. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Dave, and thank you for the organization of this meeting. It will be a pleasure to share with you what I have as my PPT. So let's do that. How can I do it? It's always fine. Oh, share screen. Let's go. Well, I propose today to discuss with you the role of private sector thanks to the UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change legal regime. As Vera told us, we actually need the environmental law as a regard for solving conflicts, avoiding even climate change, among others. What I am, I would say, a fan is this celebration of days in which we have a moment to stop and thinking or rethinking in what we are doing or not doing, or what we can do so far. So if I get in 2007 and 2008, when I had this experience of staying in the Oxford University, first it was with the Oxford Institute for Energy Studies, and after with Benito Miller, and after in the Smith School of Enterprise and Environment with Sir David King. There I developed what is called Universal Climate Legacy Metric. At this moment, I mean, in the past when I was there, I had a view of hope, very strong. I was a fan of the CDM. I had written the first Brazilian book on the legal aspects of the clean development mechanisms. And I believed that the Kyoto Protocol would be reinforced. Instead of creating new rules, new protocols, reinforcing the Kyoto Protocol, but also maybe creating another additional accord to the convention, but with the spirit of this reward to those who do something. And with the Universal Climate Legacy Metric, I put the concept of the long term. And it does mean more than the long term of government management and of an enterprise. So instead of staying in the dispute among countries or dispute among powers, I decided to classify two species. I mean, the generation and the newer generation. It could be developed in contractual basis, so it's very, very legal, related to me, I mean, everyone that would be in my generation and those who are in the past and those who are the next. And as we have the legitimation also to those that are even not born yet, it would be a way of delivering the result aimed in the most part of the environmental treaties. And this delivery would mean a better world, definitely. So it would be applied for the landscapes, for the agricultural, for the householding, the transport, everything regarding what is the environment, what is around us. And as I can show you here, I'm sorry if there is something on the right, but please take the point that we have the frame of the CCC. And in this frame, we have an irrigation, a spread of principles, we have a spread of concepts, we have many mechanisms, we have relationships being established as modalities and procedures, we have plans, projects, everything that countries have been working on. And in each new conference of the parties, we develop it. We follow standards, we follow guidelines, we build together. In the case of Brazil, as this book was written in 2002, I had appointed some risks, legal risks, regarding the fact that some of the issues as additionality, as the real delivery of the sustainable development, and many distribution of rights on the carbon credits, this would be something to be legally treated, well treated, otherwise would be many visuals in the process, and it would bring difficulties on compliance, on the value of these credits, and even in the acquaintance of everything that would be this portion of a better world. Well, I had the opportunity after and with IPEA, IPEA and Rede Clima, to develop this other book by my organization and some of the colleagues, showing after 10 years what we could get as lesson learned. There is an English version, okay? This I called it as the legacy of the CDM. I remember some international meetings in which the CDM was very, very criticized. And also even in regulation in the case of the Brazilian National Authority. And at the same time, thinking on the boards, in special the incentives for facilitation boards instead of only the commitments. Well, I had the possibility, and everyone in Brazil, to think about what would be the next steps for a real good and efficient clean development mechanism. It was fine, it was good in my regard, because everything was managed, had been in management, legal management. One of the experience very nice with the Investment Bank of Development in Washington was creating a new ERPA, the Environmental Reduction Sale Purchase Agreement. But in our perspective, it was a perspective new for CERSPA, in which we had a CR in the regard of the sellers. The non-developed worlds. The non-developed countries. So the non-annex one selling. What's the value of the undeveloped, least developed, and underdeveloping countries? So with this sharing of even responsibilities, bringing the responsibility of the richer, would say, countries, what could be shared actually in the sharing responsibility under the principle of common but differentiated responsibility for the next, for the next generations. So I checked that, although the fact that Benito Miller used to say that I was a fan, I fell in love of the CDM, I got something. There was a message to bring to me that something was failing, actually. What was failing? The mise en oeuvre, the implementation of the Kyoto Protocol, the implementation of the convention, what we should do. Thinking and rethinking, visiting the literature, I noticed that in the legal terms, it was so easy, just applying the principles, just doing our job. So it was tricky. And I said, we need, with the legal rationale, bring something. And my utilization that we have in Brazil of the sharing responsibility as an objective responsibility, the French responsibility of responsabilité sans faute. I mean, that even if we don't want to bring a damage, if you don't want the climate change for the next, we need to pay for it. Okay, the CDM had already this establishment that we need to share. We need also to make those who provoke the damage to pay for it. But in my case, there was the incentive point of the CDM, something to pay, to reward legally for those who did something. It was spontaneous. It was something to be additional in the sense that we are doing more than what is a law, but also something that we are, I mean, we are happy somehow to do what we need to do. So I don't criticize the credits in the sense of premium sanctions, okay? At the same time, I know that as a baseline, surely we need to do our commitments, we need to comply. My solution was spreading this in the long term and showing that all of us in the same generation need to do this delivered on the best article in my regard of the convention, which is the stabilization of the concentration of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. It's sufficient to have this deadline regarding that everyone that anticipates the result aimed in the law system would have a connection of showing what they or she or he did, or a company or a country did in the best for the whole world. And how to achieve this? So I've been for years, so even a bit earlier of this, I think that our connection with the great scientists of Brazil, who is Luiz Gilvan Meira Filho, one of the co-chairs of the Kyoto Protocol. So I began to work with him on how scientifically we could do that. And the global temperature metric would be the best one to do that. Because if we have the consequence, the adverse effects of the climate change touching us in the systems, in our way of living, in the species, everywhere that we have to be adapted. So the mitigation, avoidance, and at the same time, the reactions of the repairing, this makes it, instead of having only targets or even targets, we can take it off and bring the result directly with no excuses, with no sectoral plans saying, oh, let's negotiate what we are possible to do or not possible to do. Well, our capacities, do what you want to do and show as a family in one of the integrated of the family what you did. So how has a responsibility of result in somehow, and at the same time, just monitoring your result by the impact of in the temperature. And the proxies that Gilvan made is possible to do that. In the Brazilian Senate, Federal Senate of the Congress, I had the opportunity of working in 2019 by the 10 years verification evaluation process of the implementation of our national policy on climate change, which is from 2009 to 2009. So after 10 years, I checked with courts, counting, with legal aspects, with all the players, because with the public audience, with the decision of the senators, with today's meeting, very, very technical as well. So I think that we don't have only the limits of the targets, we don't have only the NDC promises, we have how to deliver it as a great and real ambition. So this now, when I see after all of these years, the universal climate legacy metric as something really to be done by governments, I see that this is a solution to just like basic and Eden is together used to do for the convention. I think that we need to show in these meetings, international meetings, that we can do that. So many thanks. And as a final words, instead of only saying a best technology available, let us do the best technology for the most social and climate vulnerable, with real financial investments in contractual climate basis. Many thanks and for the invitation and for listening to me. This is our home.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for valuable insights. So we have been listening to our eminent speakers deliberated in the areas of environment and climate change since long. All these valuable insights give us a new perspective that one should adapt in their practice. Encouragement, enthusiasm, and excellency is a major aspect of this webinar. So now coming to the question answer session of this event, I now request to our patiently listening audience to put forth their questions before our esteemed speakers for the desired answer. So let's begin. The very first question is for Dr. Bharat Maitreya. How can we promote climate change to be a part of school curriculum?
This is for me, for who?
Dr. Bharat, sir.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you for this question. So, in regarding to this environmental program, and mostly by the means of this now in our Indian government, there's new national education policy, where from the school levels to the higher educational institute, where mostly regarding to this UGC, where they emphasize that most of the students of schools or maybe college, those who have awareness about the educational program. But regarding to this climate change, so climate change action, mitigations and the policies is different than the some environmental program. So by the NCERT or maybe some kind of state level, the school textbook board, where the climate change department or by this higher education or school management, those who give for the benefits for the climate change action policies, and that the content we are included in it, because generally up to the school board level, where the uniform syllabus of all over the state or maybe nation level. So we think that it is not by the different universities where the board of studies, those who are make or the syllabus content, but in a school that particularly the government or education department, those who give some content regarding to it, and then we are generally form this some content in climate change in it. So mostly in general awareness, we have some celebrate these days, or maybe some kind of seminars, workshops are there. So mostly the school students and college students, those who are aware about this, but by means of that, in this framework of this syllabi content, we can put all content. climate change.
Thank you, sir. The next question is for Dr. Lewis. What should environmental protection experts do if the government politicizes the implementation of environmental protection policies? Sir, kindly unmute your audio.
There you go. Yeah, it's a well, my first answer would be to bring the political decision to the courts, because it's obvious that this question refers to where the politicians try to use the resources not in accordance with what has been established in the laws. So we must assume that there are instruments and policies in the laws that are obligatory and that must be complied with. So we have to enforce the rule of law, and that means that bring the decision to the court so that it is decided if it has been manipulated by the politicians or not. If we have correct instruments where the decision making is there are protocols and procedures, then the courts should be able to address this and correct the decisions of the administrative branch, which is commonly manipulated by politicians. No, so we have to review how effective the instruments are. If the procedures are good enough, if they are being used by politicians, I think that then something is wrong with the instruments. So we should consider in reviewing them, see the numbers. Are we really making the best decision making? The protocols are in place and are effective, and the courts have the possibilities to rule over this. So it's there are a lot of moving parts here, but we have to, in my opinion, we have to make the rule of law apply.
Thank you, sir. The next question is for Mr. Octavio.
Yes.
Is it fair on the part of developed countries who are using most natural resources to impose conditions of mitigating environmental degradation on gullible people of underdeveloped and developing countries?
Could you come again, the first part that I didn't grasp at all?
Yes. Is it fair on the part of the developed countries who are using most natural resources to impose conditions of mitigating environmental degradation on people of underdeveloped and developing countries?
Yeah, well, that's a quite interesting question, because at the end, developing countries are working hard to improve the conditions of their population, and usually like social conditions and welfare are related or have not completely been decoupled from material and energy consumption. So from one point, it's you could say it's not fair in the sense that you want to mobilize as much of your population to a better welfare level, and this requires resource consumption. But at the other, but in the other hand, these type of actions usually come along with the possibility of leapfrogging the process throughout new technologies that are more efficient that used to be before, when developed countries basically overconsume these resources. So at the end, what it's not about being fair or not, it's being about clever of how to have the access to these new technologies that enable us to be more resource efficient in the processing of these resources and providing a better welfare to our society. So it's more about that, about having the capacity to use the already existing technology. Of course, there is this type of financial mechanisms and organizations that are working with developing country to provide this type of financial assistance, as the CTCN, that it's part of UNEP and UNIDO. And they're focusing on with all these resources that are being obtained throughout COP from the more developed countries to allocate these resources so that less developed countries could plan and implement new technologies in this sense. So I think it's more about that, about leapfrogging our process of the less developed countries towards a better welfare level throughout the already available technology with the money or the resources that have been being created to financially make it viable for those countries. That's at least how I see it.
Thank you, sir. The next question is for Dr. Flavia. Ma'am.
Thanks.
What are the basic steps which we could work in a small community level to support balancing Earth environment?
Could you please repeat it again slower?
Yes. What are the basic steps which we could work in small community level to support balancing Earth environment?
Okay. The first step is to measure what is the negative, passive, and the potential active in terms of temperature caused as a damage for the passive and aimed for some practices regarding to show this anticipation of the final objective result written in a rule. So in the case of the global temperature written as a stabilization, we would say, for instance, I remember that in 2007, the expectation was 300 ppm. So if we reduce it, the concentration, and show the connection with the level of the temperature, thanks to this contribution, would be in a situation in which the second step would be to show these promises to the contract written by some representation of the nexus and I would say an action for some projects. So as a third step would be to go to the government and negotiate this anticipation, as the global commitment is something to be delivered by the subnational states and by the country state in itself. So administrators and administrated people would do their job and legally worded by the connection with the convention. So it's just 8. And I don't know if I need to answer the question by Costa, Mr. Costa, who had asked me some clarification as well.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is for Dr. Bharat.
Yes.
So 4 days ago, as we observed World No Tobacco Day with WHO theme tobacco, threat to our environment. Since there is nothing good about this deadly weed tobacco, why not ban tobacco cultivation and eradicate it like polio?
Generally, the cultivation, the tobacco crop, mostly the nicotine where is contained in it, which have these medicinal properties. But in the utilization of this excess way, which causes the cancer. And not only the tobacco, many more. Generally, this carcinogen cancer or maybe others which are developed by these many sources. But the patients regarding to that, because mostly the cautionary notice which are written on that or cigarette packs or maybe some kind of gutkhas or chewing tobaccos are there. But instead of that, the most of the villages and the city area where they are addicted by this tobacco and they use it, and which become the having this cancer. But the plant, where all these in the wild or maybe cultivated varieties, they are always grown or maybe cultivated in a way, as these are all these plants which have some kind of this medicinal or properties or some drug content in it. So it is helpful for us as a mankind, but excessive use, it causes all those things. So only the companies like the cigarette manufacturers or maybe some kind of vodka manufacturers or other chewing ingredients which are involved in it. So mainly, if the government which are banned to the all the factories for this manufacturers, so only this can happen. Otherwise, the cultivation of this major crops regarding to this drug industry, which are helpful.
Thank you, sir. The next question is for Dr. Lewis. What are the measures of zero waste and how can we emissions manage?
Well, I think that would be Octavio, the one that can answer better that one. If I don't know if Octavio wants to jump in.
I request
Sure.
Dr. Flavia.
Could you? Oops, sorry. Could you repeat again the question?
Yes. What are the measures of zero waste and how can we emissions manage?
Well, how emissions could be managed with this?
Yeah.
Sorry,
How could be the emissions be managed?
Yeah. The management of emissions are related to the capacity of measure them. So the most important part is to have data. So regarding carbon emissions, usually you can obtain your data from two sources. One is from the energy and substances being consumed that emits. So if you consolidate this type of data, you will know exactly what's your contribution as an organization, or from your financial statements as well. There is this other methodology where you can, depending on your expenditures and so on and so forth, allocate which are the intensities regarding greenhouse emissions. So yeah, if you measure, you can have accountability, and if you have accountability, you can compensate your impacts as an organization as well in your daily life. If you know more or less how much resources you're consuming and where they're coming from, you could have a better or a less or a more passive style of life.
Thank you, sir. The next question is for Dr. Flavia. Have you developed any metrics for environmental audit for waste management?
Well, I had some initiatives on the waste management. First, it was in my first work on the academy research, on the landfills and the legal aspects with the auction that we have in Brazil. So far, I've been matching actually with some rationale that I called X-ray of the environmental rule. And in this distinction among what is an order, what is just a commitment. So all the messages that you have inside a structure of a rule, I've been negotiating institutionally with the prosecutors and with even the Bar Association of Lawyers in Brazil to develop what I call the TAC Plus. TAC is the Termo de Ajustamento de Conduta. I would say the conduct adjustment of the polluters or someone who is pressing a not a damage but a threat for the nexus. And in this case, all the anticipation is part of this process of TAC Plus. That is it.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is for Mr. Taurus. How smart cities can be environmental friendly as we are focusing more on technology?
How smart cities could be environmental friendly? Okay, well, that's a great question. Well, usually technology, usually technology is more effective in the use of resources. There are efficiencies allocated to the technology discoveries and like pursuits. So in this sense, mankind is usually trying to make the technology that it's being in a certain way adopted to be more efficient in the use of energy, in the use of water. So in that sense, we have to have a framework of legislation, but as well of actions that enable the capacity of producers, manufacturers to account these type of frameworks or practices when they're manufacturing these technological services or products that are being implemented. And in that way, I believe that what is happening with topics such as cradle to cradle or eco-design, where not only companies are trying to deploy the best available technology, but as well to consider throughout their design and manufacturing how they can reduce the amount of natural resources being employed or decouple CO2 emissions or compensate. So this is the way, I believe, like at the end, technology and the exercise of becoming more resource efficient and effective are pushing towards that smart cities, not only as the infrastructure that is being required to establishment, but as well the data that is being consolidated pushes forwards to have better evidence to take better decisions of which should be the next way or the next movement to improve the performance. So that's how I see it. Of course, this is an optimistic view regarding technology, and in a certain way, this is not only black and white. There is like certain trade-offs and rebound effects when you are implementing or employing new technology. So this is not like a certainty, 100%, but it's the best available way, I believe.
Thank you very much, sir. The last question is open to every panelist. What are the ways to encourage the public to an eco-friendly lifestyle from and government?
If I may, intervene. It has to do also with the last question. We have to be, being eco-friendly is a lot of things. I think that the best way is to improve the way that we live in our cities. And I tell you, I think it is linked with the past question is, how do we make this a better living? I think it has to do with going to the roots. We are now working in Mexico a lot with green infrastructure, for example. Now, green infrastructure goes to the core of living well in the cities, and it has to do with mobility. It has to do with changing the way that the roads are built. How are we using the water that falls in that infrastructure? Using indigenous species of vegetation, and maybe provide for in a lot of aspects for the reuse of water, of rainwater, so that we are now reducing some levels of heat in certain cities in the north part of Mexico. Mexico is a very dry country, so two-thirds of our cities are quite hot, and they reach 30 degrees Celsius quite easily throughout the year. It's not only being eco-friendly, but we have to be intelligent and what are the measures that we take. And we are betting on green infrastructure as we can use less water and reuse the water that we are using in the first place, and building better ways of transport and the infrastructure. We think that we are helping the environment, and this means use of technology and a lot of work with the community, and it means better standards of living and happiness for the.
Mr. Taurus would like to add anything?
Thank you.
No, well, I mean, the type of example that has been given, it's Dr. Luis is stated it, like having the capacity to trace down and to recover and put infrastructure for resources to recycle are technology that are being employed and implement in territories, but as well in industries. And this is something that humanity and mankind has employed in the past. So it's just something about preservation and conservation of our own resources. And at the end, I want to make a point here is that everything is closely related to the access of information and the level of conscience that people has, the level of awareness regarding all these topics that we are basically near to a tipping point in certain boundaries of the earth boundaries, and we have to make this awareness the most have the most part of the community as people to be aware of the situation we are at, because if there is not education and consciousness, transition will be much more slow.
Thank you very much, sir. I once again thank you everyone for making this question answer session so interactive. So let's move forward. I now request Mr. Zarnesh Kanodia to address this gathering with his vote of thanks. Mr. Zarnesh. works as a chief climate analyst at Nanoland Ltd. He is a postgraduate in climate change impacts management from School of Science, Gujarat University. He mainly focused on research generally associated with climate geography, biodiversity, glaciers, and climatic wildlife. He is also a filmmaker, a wildlife photographer, and a nature lover. So now I request Mr. Zarnesh to deliver a vote of thanks. Over to you, Mr. Zarnesh.
Thank you, Jalashri. Good evening, everyone. So let me first introduce myself. I am Zarnesh Kanogia, and I work as a Chief Climate Analyst at Nanoland. I am honored to present the vote of thanks for today's international webinar on behalf of Nanoland and the entire fraternity of this organization. I extend my hearty gratitude to all the speakers for gracing their important work and sharing us their research and opinions today on World Environment Day. I want to extend my gratitude to Mr. Omkar Acharya, Scientific Advisor at Nanoland, for welcoming our speakers and providing his constant support in organizing this international webinar. I would like to extend my appreciation to Dr. Bharat Maitre, Professor at Department of Botany, Bioinformatics and Climate Change, Gujarat University, Dr. Luis Vera, Partner at Vera and Associates, Mr. Octavio Taurus, CEO at Velops, and Dr. Flavia Witkowski, Environment Law and Policy Expert at Witkowski Frangato from Brazil. We have been fortunate to have a renowned identity from academics, industry, and other areas. And I would like to take this opportunity to place on record a hearty thanks to Velops, Vera and Associates, Xavier's Research Foundation, LD College of Engineering, and US India Importers Council, USIIC, for co-organizing this international webinar and making it a success. We are grateful to Waste Nature, Ranger Aqua, It's Tomorrow News, AMCOA, Rotary Club of Ahmedabad Elite, and HK India for sponsoring this event. I take this occurrence to thank the entire committee as well as the audience for representing their valuable views, and without whom this webinar would not have been possible. Taking everything into account, I should thank all of the individuals who have upheld us directly or indirectly in the smooth working of this international webinar till the end. We have lined up more webinars like this in the future too, where we need your full participation. Thank you, everyone. This is much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. In closing, I wish to express my gratitude to all the panelists and participants for their full cooperation. We are privileged to have attended such distinguished experts as well as observers, having such resourceful and knowledgeable resources, which have helped us to give valuable insights about our environment in safeguarding the climate. With this, we sum up our session. Wish everyone to stay home and stay safe. So save the earth, plant a tree, as better environment leads to better future. Wishing you all a very happy World Environment Day. Thank you, everyone. With this, we sum up our session, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, wish you same, all of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.